What up? T-Bob here.
And Jake as well.
And look at you. You done stumbled upon little OTB Saints, where we bring you all the latest black and gold coverage.
Who are the Saints going to draft? Who's going to be their quarterback? What does the salary cap look like? All that information and more.
Hope you enjoy it. Like, subscribe.
Nick, well, we're going to see them in regular season action this Sunday. They're going to play division rival, the Carolina Panthers, who were not very good a year ago, but we're going to see what they got here in 2024. If there is one thing you're watching, you're like, I want to see this from the Saints week 1 against the Panthers, what would it be?
I really want to see them just be willing to lean into the idea of like Chris Olave, best player on the team, get him the ball early, get him the ball in space, let him do some stuff after the catch. I don't think he's ever going to be like a great yards after catch player, but I just I recently did a study just kind of on all the routes he ran last year. And I mean, there's a lot of them that you would classify as hard routes. A curl against man coverage, that's a tough route to get open on. Deep down the field, there were way too many routes where you had to go down the field to make a play. He wasn't making anything with space. The nearest defender was always right on top of him. There just wasn't a lot of an easy route, a slant, a crossing route against zone coverage, having him as the flanker, putting him in motion, having him go out and run a route on that. Over the last 2 years, he has caught 9 passes on plays in which he was in motion, before he got targeted. That seems impossible. Tyreek Hill had 46 of those last year. It's impossible for it to be that static. So I want them to just lean into the idea that they have this really good player that can do a lot of different things, that there's a lot of room left for growth. His numbers have been great, but I think he can do even more. So I want to see that. And then number 2, I want to see the Taysom Hill plan. The stuff we saw in camp, it looked so much different. It looked so much more sensible. It looked like they had an actual idea and vision to integrate him into the offense as a foundational piece, as opposed to this thing they kind of drop on top of everything else they're doing. And I think he can be really good in that role. And it's kind of frustrating seeing it after all these years. It's this is what it should have been the whole entire time. And if what we were seeing in camp is what translates into games, I'm excited to see what he ends up doing this year.
Nick, kind of a initial injury report. They've kind of started to trickle out. It kind of seems like the Saints are getting healthy at probably the best time. Is there an injury report for us going into this week 1?
So tomorrow the first one comes out. I mean, the only guy that really seems to really be dealing with an injury thing that could matter seems to be Willie Gay. Overall, it looks like things are headed the right direction. Shaheed's going to play, Marshawn's going to play. So those were the big ones that everybody was kind of looking at. I don't think that they have a lot of stuff to worry about. Kendra Miller, obviously on IR, he's going to be out for 4 weeks. We have a story with him on our site right now. I talked to him yesterday. It sounds like things are going the right direction, and he's kind of pissed off about all the noise around the injury, which is a good thing. You want it to be that. You want him to feel like he has something to prove. So, those are the big ones. But yeah, it seems like everybody's kind of healthy. They're heading the right direction. I don't think there's really anything to worry about on that front right now.
As far as the defense goes, everyone rightfully so has talked a lot about the offense, what we want to see from Kubiak. You mentioned the Taysom Hill role, Chris Olave, all that. The defense has looked really, really good. I mean, they have potential to be a top 10 defense in the NFL, but going into the season, if I asked you for the biggest hole on the Saints defense remaining, what would it be?
It's definitely the other safety spot next to Tyron. I think that's a big concern. Even going into this week, it's really not clear who's gonna be there. I'm guessing Jordan Howden gets the bulk of the snaps, but they rotated the whole entire summer between him, Jonathan Abram, and Will Harris. And I think all along, Howden was the guy that was earmarked for that position. But you would have liked to see him step up and be like, no, Will Harris does not deserve to get snaps out here. Jonathan Abram does not deserve to get snaps out here. And that kind of never happened. That elevation never really happened. I think he ends up getting it, but I think it's going to end up being more by default. And again, that's a position where if he's excelling, Simmons is never even an option. That visit, that never makes sense. And it just feels like that's a big hole. The other one is kind of more like a abstract hole, but I think just the general depth behind some of these older players is a little bit terrifying. If Tyron were to go down, I have no idea what they do. So I guess safety kind of as a whole, I do feel like they're a little bit better at linebacker now. The depth there looks pretty good, but it's just kind of the team as a whole. I think they're a little bit little bit shallow on depth, and I think it really, really stands out at that safety spot.
Nick, I actually saw this from you recently. The Saints are working out 2 punters. They did that yesterday. Trenton Gill and Corliss Waitman. Look, Matthew Hebert wins the punting job, but are they not satisfied there? What's the deal with those 2 guys coming in?
I think it's just one of them things where they're going to keep their options open, and they're probably going to be working guys out until they feel really confident with Hebert. And honestly, I mean, this is something that drove me crazy last year about Lou Hedley. Like, I didn't think Lou Hedley was having a great season last year. For whatever reason, they seemed really committed to him, and they were never bringing guys in for workouts. And I feel like it's just like a good thing to keep that pressure up. There's a lot of punters that don't have jobs. There's a lot of kickers that don't have jobs. I mean, there's only 32 of them, and there's more guys than there are jobs. I mean, it should be a very conditional type of spot, and I think that's just kind of how they're approaching it right now. I thought Hebert had a pretty good camp. Like, his leg is significantly bigger than Hedley's. He can do some of that Aussie-style stuff, but he's better at some of the more traditional things. Hang time was generally pretty good. He was able to place the ball pretty good. But I do think that there was like a little bit of inconsistency, and that was with both of them. Him and Hedley, I think that was kind of the battle in camp, was like who could figure out how to be more consistent sooner. And I thought Hebert definitely did that. I think he deserves a job, but I don't think by any means like he should be locked into a spot. So I wouldn't be surprised for a while until they feel that confidence in him if we do see these punters kind of cycling through. And it's kind of funny. There's like usually like a group of like 6 or 8 guys, and it's like they show up in one city. Then you see it on the transaction report the next day, and they're in like another city. So like they kind of just travel around in a group. I mean, the Saints should definitely be a stop on that, I think, until they feel good about Hebert.
I mean, do you think they sign one of these guys? If not, is this something
No,
they're
they
going to
aren't.
continue? You don't think they do?
No, they aren't. Neither one of them got signed. They tried out like 4 or 5 wide receivers yesterday too. Dorsett was in there. John Ross was in there. Didn't sign any of those guys immediately either. Maybe they do today, but all those guys left after their workouts without a deal.
I mean, you're talking about them working out punters and wide receivers. I mean, what about some veteran offensive linemen that are free agents? Is that a possibility for the Saints still?
They should be, right? I mean, that's I can't believe there wasn't a trade. I can't believe there wasn't something like it. I know they were looking at some different options, and I mean, I don't know what they're going to do there. And honestly, like, I don't think that you find the solution for this problem just off the free agent wire at this point. Like, typically you aren't able to sign a starter this late in the process. Like, I say that Bakhtiari's still out there, and like he's somebody that you feel like maybe could, based on his stature and status, could come in and probably be better than Penning or Uli Udoh. But the problem with him is that he's been extremely vocal throughout his career about playing on artificial surfaces, and he feels like that's what's behind like his injuries. I think that kind of immediately takes the Saints out of it. I don't know what the option is there, but I'll say this: like, one of the things I used to like about Sean Payton is that like it felt like the last 10 spots on the roster were just like constantly churned. Like, they were always bringing in somebody off the street. They were always working somebody out, and he kind of just treated those last 5-10 spots on the roster as like a long tryout, and it kind of kept the pressure on everybody. So I wouldn't hate to see that on the offensive line, just kind of churn the bottom of that. Maybe you find gold somewhere. Odds are you don't, but it feels so bleak there that it would just, I don't know, like something about just like seeing some type of effort, even if it didn't really like lead to any type of result. It feels like, something that would, I don't know. It might change the perception a little bit. It wouldn't necessarily change the reality, but I'd be trying to figure something out.
Nick Underhill of neworleans.football joining us right now. Nick, want to kind of shift our focus back to this week 1 matchup against the Carolina Panthers. They lose Brian Burns. That was kind of the biggest news of the offseason. What kind of challenges do you think this Panthers team can present the Saints?
I think the biggest challenge is that they're going against a team that nobody knows anything about. I mean, Canales obviously was in Tampa Bay last year. They played that offense twice. Like, there's some DNA with some of the stuff that he wants to do that they're going to be familiar with. And I know the Saints are looking back at those Tampa games. Before that, you got to go back to Seattle. But like, there's one drive of Bryce Young and the starters on the field in the preseason that you can look at, and that's it. I mean, so I think just trying to figure out what they're going to do, how they're going to do it. I mean, that's tough. I mean, it's a disadvantage, I think, to kind of play a team like that in week 1. The flip side is Carolina has the same disadvantage going against Kubiak's offense. So, I mean, it kind of cancels out a little bit, but I find it kind of, fascinating. How do you figure that out? What are they going to do? How are they going to, deploy everybody? That's a big issue. The other one is that you got Clowney going against, either Penning or Fuaga week one. And honestly, like I am a little bit worried about what it's going to look like when a team actually tries to scheme something up to exploit their weaknesses on the offensive line. Like preseason is kind of, you're lining up your 4 versus their 5 and you're trying to block the 4. They're going to be attacking these guys now. And now you got people looking at this preseason tape and seeing some of the stuff that Penning struggles with. I mean, I kind of felt like you could go straight at his chest and he never really got his feet set. Are they going to send 2 at him? Like, how are they going to try to, exploit some of that stuff? I think that's going to be the biggest challenge in week one by far. It's just now that teams are scheming for this offensive line, like how are you going to stop them? Do you have the talent to do it? I mean, the smart bet at this point is no. I mean, so those are the definite big things. I have confidence in DA being able to figure out this Carolina offense. The other one is like the biggest matchup is kind of the Saints versus the atmosphere too. I mean, if they get off to a slow start in this game, I've never been around a team like where it feels like going into the season, like it feels like they're 0-4, but like the fans are treating this team already like they're 0-4. I mean, if they get off to a slow start, I think that atmosphere turns on them like almost immediately. Like I think it's like drives. Like if the offense is bad on 2 drives, like I think the building turns on them that quick, and they got to get off to a fast start. They got to keep the building on their side. And I think it's imperative for them to get off to a quick start too, just because of the setup of the schedule early in the season. If they don't win this one, they could be going into that Thursday night game against Denver like 2-4, and that's not a position you want to be in. So I think this is almost, it's insane to say it about a week one game, but like this is a borderline must-win game for them.
Well, Nick, I mean that brings me to my final question. How do you think this game plays out?
I think they should kill them. I mean, that should be the expectation. I think the Saints are a much better team than the Panthers. I don't think the Panthers have the pieces yet, but it's week one. And honestly, the drives we've seen with the starting offense in the preseason, it felt like the timing and the chemistry wasn't quite there yet. So if it's rickety at all, like I think this game's could be closer than it should be. I kind of feel like that they should be able to win it. I do have confidence in the offensive system, but I don't think it's going to be like a huge win. I think they end up maybe winning. I think it's probably a game that's closer than it should be, but I think they find a way to win it.
All right, Nick Underhill of neworleans.football. Nick, thanks for hopping on, man.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Wow, just amazing black and gold takes right there, Jake.
I don't think I've ever heard any takes that are better than the 2 guys that just gave you that take.
And you can keep getting them by going ahead and liking, subscribing, ringing the bell to get notifications when we post. Have a great day. We'll see you on the next OTB Saints.